when small group is going well, it's a thing of beauty. It's so wonderful to see a group of people engaged, locked in, eager, and they're on time. They wouldn't miss it. And it is such a joy to enter into, those scenarios. And it's such a great gift. And I hope every one of us have some experience of just the fruit of being together and living our lives in Christ together. It's an incredible gift. But it doesn't always go that way. It doesn't always go that way. And there will be challenges that you will be invited from the Lord, part of what the Lord is doing in your life, part of your challenge, part of how the Lord is changing you, is putting you in difficult positions and places and conversations. And it's your job to do it. Wouldn't it be great if, have you seen these commercials about, wouldn't it be great if in all aspects of our life we could have a backup? The first string quarterback always has a backup, but we don't have a backup. We can't sort of tag out and have somebody else come in and deal with the difficulty, and then we come back in and take our place. It's your unique challenge and cross to address the difficulties that will arise in the small group. The other challenge is everybody knows it's your challenge, right? Everyone is expecting you to do something. Make this challenging situation go away. It's awkward and difficult for every one of us, and it ratchets up the pressure. And so I just want to name that as this two-edged sword that we both have to do and say hard things or things we're not maybe comfortable with, and it also there's a cut there that cures. And addressing difficulties and doing it well, can be a really beautiful transformation for you and for everyone in the group. And this is a unique difficulty that is ours to carry. And so I just want to jump in and to show a slide of each of the kind of difficulties. We'll get into each of these more in a minute, but they all start with D, difficulties. You've got some folks who are disengaged. You've got folks who are derailers. You've got this is doctrinal. This is a little hard. This is a little mini St. Francis, but I don't know. You've got the ones who they've got all sorts of interesting doctrinal and pastoral ideas about things. You have the drainer, the person who just says too much, talks too much, more like oversharing or overcritical, TMI. And then you have the dominant one, the one that just can't stand silence and loves to hear themselves talk. That would be me. That would be me. I'm that guy. So this is just a quick overview of a little bit of what we're looking at. And I want to go into each of these just briefly. The first is the disengaged one. This is the person who is not just quiet, but they purposely don't speak up, either because they aren't comfortable or the way that the group is structured, they don't feel the freedom or space. Somebody could be disengaged by being distracted. Probably have some people who are checking their phones or their watch. Or you have people who are disengaged in a macro sense. They come sometimes and they don't others. So there's a lot of different types of disengagement. The next is the derailer. This is the person who might interrupt, has something else to add, building on what somebody just said, and they kind of take over the stage. You have the jokester. How about the side conversation starter? That's no fun. That happens all the time. And a lot of times, and they need a buddy, They need a buddy because you can't have a conversation with yourself. And so they need a buddy. So you have disengaged, you have derailers. Then you have the doctrinal, as I mentioned. There's a lot of misleading statements, folksy, kind of non-biblical sayings that get thrown out. We'll talk more about what those are in a minute. Then you have, and then you have sometimes just straight heresy. Sometimes that happens too in your group, and that's a challenge that we have to address and work on. Then you have folks who can be quite draining. This is oversharing, kind of over-critical or over-spiritual. It just kind of zaps the energy out of the group. It's not that they talk all the time. It's just they talk a lot when they start. Or they don't know where to. You ever have these folks? I would kind of be like this, where they just don't know how to land the plane, and you're like, I thought we were there. Now they're going back up again, and you're just like, and if you interrupt them, then the plane's going to fall out of the sky and it's going to crash, and this happens, right? Then you have the dominant one, and this is more intense. They can't stand silence. They love to debate. They love to sort of prove other people wrong. They're the know-it-all, or they have kind of an agenda that they keep sort of beating, So these are examples of difficulties, and I would guess most of the difficulties you'll find could probably fit in one of these 5 categories. And I want to start with, I want to do just a few things here. The first thing I want to do is give us some principles, just in general, principles of how to address difficulties. Generally speaking, if you don't address a difficulty, it will continue. It may not get worse, it might, but it will continue. And like I said, everything you're seeing, other people in the group are seeing as well. And they're kind of looking to you to address it in some way. One thing I do want to say first is I want to take the pressure off of getting it right, of having to be perfect on it. And here's what I think people appreciate the most in a small group is not that you get it right, but that you are engaged in trying to address it. They see that goodwill. They see the difficulty, and they see you trying. That is probably the most important piece, because we aren't going to nail it. We know, as for all of us any of us who have been parents, we know that our words don't come out flawlessly. And sometimes we have to say some things in the heat of a moment, if you will, that we wish we could press pause and go talk to ChatGPT and see, what would you recommend I say to my hostile 14-year-old locked in her bedroom? I wish we could press pause. But in the small group, what I would say in general, if you don't address it this week, you'll probably have another chance the next week. But what the group will see is your willingness to engage. And that creates a tremendous amount of goodwill. So that's just one thing to note. So perfection is not our goal. Yes?
A question.
Yes.
So with this principle, it says never address the whole group, speak to one person. But then they don't see you trying to address it. So
well, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about
Yeah,
that?
so never address. So what happens is sometimes you think the first principle, never address the whole group when you're speaking to just one. Let's say there is one person doing a consistently unhelpful sort of behavior, and you say, hey, as a group, we want to make sure that we do it this way, not that way. And while I'll talk about when that's appropriate to do, but oftentimes the person these difficulties often stem from a lack of self-awareness, right? So they can't see, they don't think that they're doing that thing per se. So this is why we think, oh, well, shoot, yeah, we'll just carpet bomb the whole group and trust that that'll take care of the problem. But the problem is they're immune. The reason that these behaviors are coming, they didn't dream these up yesterday. These are ways of being in the world that are pretty strong. And so I think the first principle, never address the whole group when you're really speaking to just one. Now, let's say there's 2 or 3 people who are doing similar kinds of behavior, and yeah, sure, you can address it, and we'll talk about how to set expectations up front that can help. But part of it is a lack of self-awareness. Not always, but sometimes the message doesn't get through. So, principle number 1, never address the whole group when you're really speaking to just one. The second principle would be, when addressing difficulties as a group or one-on-one, sooner is always better. Sooner is always better. And again, I want to give us grace. You don't have to do it immediately and the first time. Sometimes it helps, especially as a group is getting going. You want to establish you want to start to see a pattern. Did they drain or dominate or disengage once? Well, you don't need to address it the next time. Maybe see, does it happen a second time or a third time? Once it happens the third time, I think we've started to establish a pattern. And the sooner then you can make a plan, and we'll talk about how to make a plan here in just a minute, the sooner the better. Third principle, many difficulties can be avoided or minimized if you take time to set expectations up front. And this is especially true, and part of the benefit of adding new people to a group is you can continually set expectations. Let's remember, here are some things that are crucial, for us as a group. And I'm going to give you an example of 4 expectations that you could set. So the first is respect. This is where we're simply saying, in word and in deed, we want to honor and respect each other. Number 1. Did this just die? Hello? Oh, well. Can you hear me? I'll just keep talking. If we have a microphone, another microphone, that'd be great. The next is restraint. We want to encourage people to exercise discipline on how long they share and what they choose to share. So naming respect and restraint can be helpful. The third one, an expectation we could set up front, would be to make room. To make room. Give silence a chance to work its magic. Encourage people not to rush into silence. Silence can be one of your best friends if you can withstand it. So encourage people, normalize silence. It's okay for people to think and to process. And this also, okay. Interlude. Let's see here. I don't know what we're doing. Let's see. Do we have a handheld? Yes. Let's just grab the handheld. Yeah. So normalizing silence. The next is to value risk, to encourage people, thanks Tim, to encourage people to take a leap, to speak up, to go deep, to be vulnerable. So these 4, I think, can be really helpful to name up front: respect, restraint, making room, and taking risks of getting involved. These can really help go a long way. For instance, and again, I just use these not prescriptively, but trying to describe what I think could be helpful. The next slide goes another step further. I'd say we're not looking for advice and answers. Not so much. That's not really what we're here to provide each other. We are looking for encouragement and curiosity. That question that says, oh, wow, interesting. Tell me more. Encouragement. Next, quiet is okay, but you'll probably be called upon. And let people know that quiet is fine, silence is fine, but eventually I'm going to invite you to share, to speak up. And this is, I think, a helpful one, this last one. Prioritizing coulds rather than shoulds. What do I mean by that? Saying, hey, you could do this with, in your relationship with your wife rather than you should do this. Coulds rather than shoulds can be a helpful thing to encourage people to include. Okay, so setting expectations up front can really help, and then reinforcing it as you go along can be crucial. Okay, next principle. When, where, and how to address difficulty largely corresponds with the intensity of the behavior. When, where, and how to address the difficulty largely corresponds with the intensity of the behavior. The next slide shows that the least intense, you can probably address it just in the moment as it happens. Maybe it's been happening a couple of times, it happens again, it's not very intense, you can address it. If it feels like it's a little more than in the moment, well, utilize what I'd call kind of a pull aside after or before the meeting. Hey, so-and-so, just wanted to chat with you about X, Y, or Z. And we'll talk again a little bit of how to do that. But if it's most intense, it's not going to work in the moment. It's probably not just a pull aside. It might need to be like a phone call or even a meetup. And again, there's a lot of different ways of doing this, but what I've often found, just in general, appealing to the good of the whole is what we are aiming at. Invite them in to be a part of helping to make this group go well. And so you have to affirm something. You have to name what it is you appreciate. This oversharing or this dominance or this disengagement, there's something there that we can say, hey, this is helpful. I appreciate your restraint. I appreciate that you're not trying to dominate the conversation. But gosh, the group is missing out on your contribution. Or, hey, you are so quick to jump into conversations. I want to make sure that doesn't disable others from getting involved. So again, I don't want to be prescriptive, but I do think affirming, giving really clear direction on what it is you're observing, and then giving them a vision for how kind of an adjustment in their behavior can really contribute to the group. So that's that. And here's the other thing. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you've been kind of the supervisor and you have people, kind of underneath you. I used to, whenever I was in ministry and I lived in community with others, I was the one sort of in charge of the group or the team. And if there was ever a like, hey, could we meet? And then they'd always feel like, what did I do wrong? And so we don't want that. We don't want that vibe. And that's why I think in the moment or kind of a quick pull aside, rather than, hey, do you think you and we could meet up for coffee this week? And it's something you don't really need to do that. So just be aware of the weight of your leadership is something that we have to carry gently. The last principle is, I would say, go to the person, this is from Matthew 18, with a spirit of gentleness, Galatians 6:1. Again, we're not in charge, we're not the pastor, we're not the local ordinary bishop, we're not the pope, we're not in charge of a big ministry, we're volunteers, and we're here to serve people. The person that you might be correcting may very well be one of the next people who ends up leading a group as well. And so we're all in this together, and we need this kind of encouragement and support. Again, most people don't get this kind of honest, loving feedback in their life. Most everybody else in their life is avoiding it, just like we want to as well. It's true. So can we have the courage in prayer and in love, speaking the truth in love, to know that this is a kindness that we are doing to serve someone else, as difficult as that is. Okay, so let's look at some of the peskier challenges. And I would say some of the peskiest challenges are those challenges that we need to kind of address in the moment because the behavior isn't helpful to the group. So we'll go through 4 here. First, the disengaged. Do you have somebody on there? Has anybody ever had anybody on their phone? Has anybody had anybody sort of spaced out or they seem like they're in their own little world? You want to avoid like, yo, wake up. You don't want to clap at them or snap. One time I fell asleep in a small Spanish class, and we had the TA was running the class, and I just kept nodding off. Well, the teacher walked by and walked into the room and literally shook me awake. It was quite alarming. Don't do that. Don't do that. What we want to do would be, let's say if they have their phone, hey, Josh, not to pick on Josh, hey, I've noticed you're on your phone quite a bit during the meeting. Is everything okay? Again, why are some people on their phone? Because maybe they're checking notifications from family and you didn't know what's going on. Or they'll say, no, nothing's good. Hey, would you mind setting it aside till the end of the meeting? Or they're a little bit, kind of spaced out or disengaged. I think a good move would be invite them to speak, get them involved in that way. Or you might say, hey, Jackie, here we go. Grateful you're here. You seem a bit distracted. Is there something on your mind that would be helpful to chat about? Again, just trying to address it in love. It may also work to kind of pull them aside rather than maybe confronting that behavior. That feels like a good pull aside moment. Hey, you seem kind of distracted tonight. Is everything okay? Is there anything that would be helpful to chat about? Okay, that's the disengaged folks. The next are those who derail through interruption, side comments, or jokes. You're not going to tell them to knock it off or, say that they never take it seriously or to yell at them to stop it. If they're making side comments, here, Josh again. Hey, Josh, let's limit the side chatter. I want to make sure each person has our full attention. Or if they're making jokes, this happens a lot. Hey, I love that we can laugh together. But let's make sure not to lose a thread of the conversation. So again, trying to find good pastoral ways to be clear, but also inviting to change. The dominant ones, the debater or the know-it-all, we're not saying, whoa, I've heard enough, or like, you again? If they're dominant, hey, thanks, John. Let's hear from a few others. Sometimes with the dominant one, you have to find the breath. When do they take the breath? I really mean it. Like as soon as they stop, you got to jump in. You have to do it. Or they like to debate. Oh, okay, Cheryl. Hey, well, real quick before we launch into a debate, let's consider again the question at hand. Or the know-it-all. Hey, I appreciate the input. It seems like you have a lot of insight. Does anybody else have thoughts on the matter? I found too, just a little tip, I found that if you say the person's name, it really dignifies the interaction. And if someone was to say my name, I'll have their attention, they'll have my attention, but I want to hear what they have to say. There's great power in that. The next one is the overcritical or the draining one. Sometimes we just want to cry, TMI, like, whoa, too much information. Where's the filter? But a lot of times, let's say an oversharing comes from a place of real woundedness and hurt. And actually, I think empathy is so important in the moment. I think we need to be able to practice saying, and not solving, but saying, hey, Jimmy, that's really rough. What you're describing is so difficult. Wow. I'm so sorry this is happening to you. Not trying to fix it, but just naming what it is they may be experiencing, validating maybe what they're describing. And then if it's something that needs to be addressed in a pull aside to say, hey, I love, sometimes folks might need, if there could be a therapist recommendation if it's a really serious thing that we know our group really isn't outfitted to support them if they keep sharing in a particular vein. We could think about that. The next is if sometimes people are critical of other people in their life who aren't in the group. This sometimes happens with spouses. One spouse is in the group, and they kind of take this as a chance to be really critical of their spouse, for instance. So the overcritical. And you can say, Barbara, hey, it's good to get a feel for what's hard in that relationship. So what oftentimes is happening, they're avoiding talking about their own lives and expressing criticism of others. And actually want to bring the question, back to them. How does this question challenge you in your own life? So again, if you don't have the courage to speak up one week, you'll probably get a chance the next. So beware of that. So the last two pieces, I want us to take a look. Do we have this written down? Yeah. Let's go to the next one there. There's doctrinal concerns. How many have experienced people saying the Eucharist is something like it's just a symbol, or confession to a priest is unnecessary? I just confess to God directly, or all religions basically lead to the same God, or you don't need the church, you can follow Jesus on your own. People will make untrue doctrinal statements, and we have to sort of be alert to that and find gentle ways to correct that. So I'd like to throw it out to you. Actually, we'll look at the next one as well. There's the other pastoral one. You ever hear this? God helps those who help themselves. Well, God helps those who need help, who don't have any help. God helps the weak. Everything happens for a reason. Well, I don't know. We're not always going to know that reason. That doesn't always validate the experience today in the moment. And then finally, God will never give you more than you can handle. Like, I don't think that's true. I don't, I think God will give me as much as we can handle together, but it's not because I can handle a bunch of stuff. That's not the spiritual life. But people say that all the time. These sort of folksy, non-biblical sayings. So whether it's this, let's start here. Just in the round table, take just a couple minutes. How might you address some of these things that come up, either pastoral or doctrinal? Choose one or the other. Take just a couple minutes. I just want to have you guys discuss how would you address a doctrinal or pastoral issue in your small group.